Working with is In the Flow of Life by Ericl Butterworth. It is on the site, on our website, Living Peace Now. And it's a very old book. It's been around for 50 some years. So you will be able to find it in whatever language you want to read it in. Okay, I know, for instance, I've got the French version here, but it's been translated into many languages. So it helps if you're able to read the book in preparing for the discussions. It gives you a better idea what we're talking about. So today we're going to dive into the chapter on that he calls the art of getting along, which is an interesting topic, something we all can revisit, something we all struggle with on occasion. There's every single one of us gets mad, gets angry sometimes, right? And disgusted. And, and we wonder, why does that person always do that? So we're going to think about that today and talk about it and learn from Ericl Butterworth's. He's really good in this chapter. He has some really good thoughts that are very helpful. We're going to join Ericl Butterworth to see what he has to say about the art of getting along with people, which, is something that we all learned when we were little kids, and we keep on learning it. And things keep changing. And what he points out, of course, is that getting along is really getting along with ourselves. So we're calling it Living Fully, which is chapter 5 in the the flow of life. So what makes a life that's deeply satisfying? You want to take a guess? Anybody?
Probably great relationships.
Okay, do you think that's true?
Well, you have to appreciate and love yourself before those come about. But
okay, so that's really an important piece. Yes, you're not going to have really good relationships with a lot of other people unless you're in good shape with yourself. That's basic.
and sometimes, as Butterworth said, you have to, or it's important to shift yourself into a better perspective of what's going on, of the situation or of the person or of yourself.
Or,
Or,
I mean, are those three equally? That you have to know about the situation, you have to know about the other person, you have to know about yourself.
okay, to answer the question, what makes life deeply satisfying?
Right.
I think it's to be in love with everything.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Actually, it's about being in the flow. Does that sound familiar?
Never heard of it.
Well, it is the title of the book.
Yes,
But
I know. I know.
yeah, I mean, so the more he says, points of interaction that we have with the universe that we are a part of, the more satisfying our life can be. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Anybody else it makes sense to?
About the title?
Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
about being in the flow is what makes you be able to be happy and fulfilled and feel joyful.
yeah, I'll add my idea in the end.
So he points out that he quotes Lao Tzu, who is an early writer in China and gave us the basis of the Tao, says that we live in proportion to the number of points with which we contact life and the world. Deep down, we know that we're not isolated, but we're fully one with all of creation. And that's his definition of what gives us a full, satisfying, happy, joyful life. It's a very interesting perspective because I was reading today, and it's really true, that pessimists, you know what a pessimist is? Let me put it in the chat. So we have pessimists and we have optimists. And the mist part is just a person who typically thinks of pessi, the worst, or opti, the best. And the writer that I was reading, it wasn't Fillmore or Butterworth, said over the ages, most of the time, the people who survived have been the pessimists. So all of us have pessimistic genes. Pessimists are people who are, tend to expect the worst rather than the best. How many of you would say that you often can think of every bad thing that can happen?
I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's especially when my anxiety is taking over, this amplify the
Yes.
pessimist scenarios.
So how about the rest? Adnan, Sayed, Suleiman, Abu, Lisa?
Yes, it sometimes arrive to me when I want to do something, and in my head there is a voice who said to me that it is not possible, you cannot have it, or you cannot do it. It arrived me sometimes, yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Suleiman.
in my side, it is the same thing. Before I meet, I don't know, this activity of Raja Chiku, with this situation, it arrives sometime. If I wanna undertake something, I said that it is not possible because of it is difficult, or because of I cannot reach the target or my objective.
Mhm.
But once I have already begun to work with Rajachiko, and Marie said me always, everything that we want to do, we have to avoid the doubt, because of everything that you doubt that you are not going to reach it, that is you have already the bad things, because you have already the bad things on you. And on not, I am right now, if I want to undertake something, go ahead and see the result
Yes.
before thinking that it will be okay or not.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. And that's really the point that Butterworth is making here in general, is that, you know, we all see, most all of us see horrible things happening everywhere else in the world and right around us sometimes. And we tend to, think, okay, they need to be fixed. With Syed in Afghanistan, I'm sure that it's very easy to think that the Taliban and the government, they're crazy. They need to be fixed. Right?
Yeah.
And what you described, Suleiman, in Mali, same thing. They're crazy. And
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
But can we fix them, whoever them is?
Right.
Can we fix someone else?
To fix maybe what kind of?
Well, can we fix the Taliban? Can we fix the Mali government? Can we fix the family members that are going to be at the house in Florida to clean it out? Those are the ones I know of. Can you fix those people?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
No.
go ahead.
I don't think so. You'd be surprised how often somebody feels like they're having a problem and they want some help. And I say, okay, let's talk about it. And they tell me, well, my brother-in-law is such a wuss. He does this, he does that. He makes everything horrible. How can I change him? The answer always is, you can't. There is no way to change someone else. No way. Get it about. You can't do it. But what can you change in every problem situation?
Yourself and how you look at it.
Yeah. You can change how you are seeing it and how you choose to respond to what seems like is going on out there. But it's only a problem for you if it's going on inside you. And we tend to forget that. So we always have the power, even in really awful situations. We have the power to think about, to describe the situation differently than we might originally want to do. We always can do that. And the funny thing is that when we do that, and Suleiman, this is what Anne-Marie is sharing with you, and she's had a lifetime of doing it,
Yeah.
is that when you change what you're thinking, it changes how the situation plays out. It changes how you experience it. And it's all about your change of attitude.
Yeah, really.
You've experienced this, right, Suleiman?
Yeah, great is that because of before me myself, I have no, I don't know, truth on me, or I don't know yet really, but everything that I want to undertake, I means that okay, that is difficult, I can't, or that is not possible, or that we cannot reach the target or the objective. And Anne-Marie said, Gindu, go ahead. That is a word, but don't put it in practice. It make you lost the things. And everything right now where I am, I avoid everything to avoid this doubt. If I have the project or an idea, I am going with the objective, with my vision, and I go ahead and see the results. And
Yes.
everything that I undertake with these things, it is the successful things.
Mhm.
Every project that we undertaking with the children, at the beginning it appears as crazy, but at the end it is the wonderful things.
Yeah.
Really.
Because that's the way she thinks, and she's very good at that. She's very creative
Yeah.
and a good problem solver, and does it very naturally. So yeah, she has made amazing things happen that I've seen. So I know you've had that experience too in working with her. She's going to come on in half an hour and say, I couldn't find the link. She often is here for this class. And then if she's not, she always writes to me afterwards and tells me why she wasn't. So it'll basically be, I sent her 2 invitations, so maybe she'll find us earlier today. Anyway, she is a wonderful example of, looking at knowing how the world works, knowing the basic laws of the universe, knowing that, okay, we can choose how we're going to evaluate someone else or some situation. But we can always change that, and we can't change anybody else. But we are very powerful when we know what we want to create, and we follow that idea, we pursue that idea, we keep coming back to that idea, we live that idea, we imagine it, we really experience it. This is what we've been talking about now, this is the second month, is how we use our power to make happen the kind of experience that we want. And I've shared with you before that I'm pretty old, but in my life, I can't, everything that I've ever really wanted to experience eventually has, come about. It's really amazing when I look back how the fact that I had a vision of something eventually made that happen, and it was satisfying. So that's basically what Butterworth is talking about. It's basically what we've been talking about. And we all have pessimistic thoughts. And the guy writing that had a very good point, that pessimism is helpful to survival, because it means that when you see, thank you, Syed, when you see opportunities, that you can make them happen. So let's go back to Butterworth. We're built, we're created so that we need to be in the flow to be happy. we need to be connected with the generosity, the love, the help that is always there for us if we focus on it and not on all the bad things that could also happen. And I've found it interesting reading that and thinking that, okay, that became a commandment in our tradition. And if I'm talking about the Judeo-Christian tradition, and if yours is Islamic, it's partially in that tradition, and it's an extension of it. So you may the way the teaching you had as a child may have presented it differently than we got it. We got it as a commandment. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole strength and thy whole mind and thy whole heart. And thou shalt love others as yourself. That's in both the Hebrew Testament and in the Christian Testament. So I don't know if anybody knows a quote from the Quran or from other Islamic teachers that says the same thing, but I'm sure that somehow you've learned that, perhaps not in the form of a command. You know, looking at Butterworth saying, well, this is what we need to do to be happy, makes me realize, gee, that's weird that we were commanded to do what we need to do anyway, that makes our life joyful. And knowing what I know about Judaism, that's exactly, how that would have been seen in Jewish culture, because Judaism really gets the idea of commandments and laws, and, really is excited by laws and what they mean and what they have to do to follow them. Other spiritual traditions have other focuses, which is one of the things we learn when we learn about many different traditions. There's, like the Tao is all about the paradoxes, the oppositions, optimist versus pessimist. You can do this or you can do that. That's the essence of the Tao. Buddhism, we know from the story of the Buddha, is all about how to escape suffering, which comes about in that tradition through mind control and meditation. So I'm not going to go through all the world religions, but they have different angles, different perspectives on what life is all about. So learning that, wow, hey, this is what we really need to do to be happy, makes it a lot more sympathique, a lot more attractive to me, because I like to rebel against rules. Butterworth also says, in the flow of life, there is always potential for peace, understanding, and cooperation. And he goes back to Lao Tzu, whoever flows as life flows has solved the puzzle of what are we here for, the human equation. So what Butterworth teaches us is that the more we can stay focused on the flow of life, connection with the flow of life, and keep our thoughts on that, the happier we're going to be. Vittoria, I need to ask you to mute yourself. getting a lot of noise. So, thinking about the flow, Lisa, when you go to Florida to clean out that house, how are you going to stay in the flow?
I'm going to take as many breaks as I need to so that I can breathe, so I can
Okay,
head back in and still be kind and understanding and accepting of other people's opinions. Because,
okay,
I mean, there may be headbutting, there may not. I don't know.
yeah,
But the best way I can do is when there comes tension, I have to remove myself from it for a bit, center myself, and then I can go back and deal with it. But
okay. So you're gonna basically
That's
take care of your need for centering.
Right.
Okay, that's a good strategy. It's a good plan. Karen, what's coming up for you where you're going to be challenged about staying in the flow? And what are you going to do about it?
Well, I've been practicing shifting my perception or my frame of consciousness. I had a little practice yesterday. I went out to eat with a friend, and lo and behold, another person came to the same restaurant who I had worked with in previous years that I didn't have a very good feeling about. And I immediately started, oh no, it's that person. I thought, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where are you going with this? And I thought, I don't really know that person very well. And as it turned out, we had an interesting conversation, which, and I won't go into the conversation, but with that person, and it was about something which really was a misunderstanding for both of us 12 years ago. And we ended up laughing and talking, and
Good.
but it
Wow.
was just a matter, my first reaction was, well, I don't have to talk to them.
That's true.
But I made it a point to, to go, say hi. I don't know. Anyway, it turned out to be good, and it clarified something that, I'd forgotten about until I saw the person, but it still was a good outcome, a little thing, but just a little shift made for a much better conclusion of that meal than, just saying, oh, I saw that awful person again. I'm glad I don't have to work with them,
Right.
So,
Okay, good. So anybody else? Sayed or Suleiman
Yeah.
or Abu?
Yeah,
Okay.
just I would like to say something about this.
Yes.
Yes, Lisa mentioned some particular tips about how we can flow.
Yeah.
That's important. Helping with others is one point. I really like this, in accepting other people. That can these two particular and radical tips can change the life, and I really like these two tips. Helping with other people and accepting other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really very powerful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Abu, you got any thing you'd like to share about a challenge and how you might deal with it? How about you, Suleiman?
So, as Lisa and Said Nabi said, it is the same also in my side. And I would like, if this kind of things arrives on me, I already said that. So anyway you are, we are all human. And the first of thing, all things that I need or I love, is that I reach to the other person and to accept the others, love them like I love myself, accept them like I accept my members of the family. And if I have idea that cannot be practiced for the other people, and if it is helpful for the other people, I will share it. And then together with the peaceful life in order to be glad or happy in this wonderful life. This is that I have as flow of life.
So it struck me as you were talking that, yeah, that's accept people, love people as you love yourself. How well do you love yourself?
That is the wonderfication. So me as a human being, for me, I am human equal to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I love me how I am. That means I am human. I simple like that, and I like or I love peace and enjoying and happy. This is all what concern or what I mean with peace. And it is the same case I would like for another person. It's like I said.
Right. So the opportunity for being better in the flow
Okay?
and being happier, which is what our life is supposed to be, surprisingly enough, is
Mhm.
learning to love ourselves better than we do already. And I don't know about you guys, but I know that, I can be pretty hard on myself. I find myself saying, wow, that was dumb. Why were you so stupid? Uh, you know, or I can't do anything right. I always make mistakes. Yeah, I always do with computer stuff. Wow. But I can't say that to myself because in fact, I need to really be aware of the wonder that every person, every being, every created essence is. It is a beautiful, wonderful world. And Butterworth said that, and this is really true, and it's a truth that I need to keep working on, that if we truly knew every other person, we could not help loving them. If we really knew anybody, we would have to love them completely because every being expresses. Hi, Anne-Marie. Good to see you.
Hello.
Every being expresses the whole universe. And that is true of me too, and of Lisa, and of Karen, and of Anne-Marie, and Suleiman, and Sayed, and Adnan, and Abu, and everybody. If we really could see the essence of other people and of ourselves, we'd be blown away. How often do you feel that way about yourself? Anybody got a percentage?
I didn't get the question.
Question is, how often do you realize about yourself how wonderful and, just awesome you are? And so is everybody else. What
Yeah,
percentage of the time?
how we can think about the value of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So, all of the relatives and all of the other people that keep doing things that make you mad.
in Afghanistan or other country, the value in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's the totally amazing thing about
Yeah.
the idea of being in the flow. It's being in the flow of that awareness, of that awe, of that wonder. It's really there in people, in everybody. So Butterworth could say that in every single relationship, there is the possibility for joy, for love, for appreciation, for kindness, for all good things. If we can tune into the wonder that each person is, along with all the things that we don't find so wonderful, including about ourselves.
Is it possible that this happens when we put our egoism apart?
When we what?
The ego apart?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
Mhm.
Because we think that who we are is this body.
Mhm.
We don't really, so Syed says that when he's got a problem, he smokes, which isn't such a good thing to do. Well, no, Syed, because you're escaping. You're not becoming more aware. You're not getting more connected. Yes, often when we think, okay, that's what happened, but that's not who I am. That's not who that person is. The most amazing experience I have had in my life with this awareness is in relation to my mother, who in her journal when I was a baby wrote almost every day about how awful I was. And why was I so nasty to her? This is when I was an infant, right? And that was the way she saw me, and I knew it. And I always felt that she didn't like me. And so I didn't like her. It was a problem. And one day I was in my 50s. It's a long time ago, but it was a long time after my childhood. I was learning about alcoholism and what life is like for people who live in an alcoholic family. Yes, Anne-Marie, I agree with that. It's not about being a good Muslim. It's about being a wonderful human being. Anyway, I had heard, my mother had told me about her father, who was an alcoholic, and her mother, this was back in the early 20th century, had kicked him out of the house. And we never saw a picture of him. We did not know his name, but he came around to her school all the time, drunk, and embarrassed her. And, that was what she grew up with. And when we were cleaning out my mother's house, we found a photograph of her father, my grandfather. We saw for the first time I learned his name and I saw a picture of him. And what I saw was I looked just like him. And it just made me understand, oh, it wasn't about me at all. It was about my mother's ongoing response as a very sad child to her father and how he had made her feel. And without being aware of it, I made her feel the same way because I looked like him. But that was a moment of total change for me. She had died already, so I wasn't able to let her know in physical life that I saw her much more clearly. But when I did, it changed my whole feeling about her. And I understood that she had been in great pain. And it was actually pretty amazing what she managed to do despite that pain. So I found a way to appreciate her and honor her, which I'd never been able to find before. And it was a huge blessing in my life because it meant that I realized that it wasn't, that her negativity about me wasn't about me. I had nothing to do with it other than how I happened to look. And, so it changed my whole perception of my childhood. It can be that powerful. And I realized, she was a really good person. And I was able to appreciate that goodness for the first time. So that's what Butterworth is talking about, is that every person down deep is awesome. And when we find it hard to love them, we are letting something disconnect us from who they really are. And it's really up to us to find the key to shifting our perception of them. And I have found often that as being a leader of a community, there's a lot of people who have problems with other people. And I've always found that if I ask them what's going on and listen to what they're telling me, they're going to let me know one way or another what pain they're in. And if I can be kind in acknowledging, letting them know that I hear the pain, that I am not judging them for it, that, it's people hurt and it's okay. Then that clears their emotional field so they can begin to find a solution for themselves. And, once they've said everything they need to say, instead of continuing the conflict, they'll begin to say, okay, so I'm beginning to realize I really could, and they'll, tell me another way they can look at the situation. I don't even have to coach them. But that's in everybody, that they want harmony. We want harmony. We want peace. We want love. We want to see the good. And the better we're able to do that in different situations, the more joy we have in our lives. So the art of getting along is really, as he's been saying all along, and what we call an inside job. It's about our awareness and about opening the flow of information to our inner awareness and letting that flow take care of whatever is uncomfortable in a situation. And, sometimes that can be really challenging. Sometimes it's relatively easy, but sometimes, oh my God, I mean, I have a friend who got a really dire diagnosis for cancer a couple of days ago, out of the blue. And wow, that was tough for me to imagine, what she was going through. But her response to it has to be about shifting awareness and getting tuned in to that good, that flow of good that's there for her. And she needs to become aware of that. And she's doing very well with it. But that's, sometimes doing this can be really challenging. But it's always worth doing. It's what we need to do. So, as he says, in the flow of life, there's always potential for peace, understanding, and cooperation, even when it doesn't look remotely possible. And as we've already talked about, the art of getting along only relates secondarily to other people and situations. Primarily, it refers to getting along with the reality of ourself and the determination to keep the channels of consciousness free from obstructions. So, Lisa, your strategy in your upcoming family house cleanup in Florida is a good instinct. It's a good plan because it gives you a chance to reconnect with your own inner awareness and get back into a peaceable connection with the flow.
I don't want there to be conflict.
Right.
I don't want there to be push and shove emotionally.
Right.
So if I'm feeling pressured in that moment, I'll just say, excuse me, I need to take a moment. And then I'll go and calm myself and then come back.
Right. And you may find that there may be an opportunity to talk with the person that's causing you the distress, saying, that seems to be really important to you. Do you want to share a little bit?
Yeah.
And you may find that, you're not aware of something that's very important for them that, you'd be perfectly happy to go along with.
Right. I think that what we call deep listening is one of my favorite skills.
Good.
Okay. But I have to be in the calm mind frame to do it.
You have to be connected to do it. Yes, absolutely. Right. So, yeah, I mean, going away and finding your center is something we all need to do often. But I also find that, non-intrusive observation, becoming aware of, okay, so how is this person feeling? Why are they doing this? More often than not, what I find out is something that is perfectly understandable, like what I found out when I realized about my mother. It's like, oh, okay, boy, she was dealing with a lot, and that was able to change my perception. And that happens often. If I take the time to, talk a little bit more and be totally non-judgmental. I just want to know.
Right. I think one of my favorite Facebook memes is everyone is shouldering their own burdens. So if you have to be anything, choose to be kind.
Yeah, right.
I believe that. I hope I practice that.
Right. It's a good default.
I think that, my first impulse, instead of being judgmental, is to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, even me.
Oh, good. Yeah, we certainly deserve it just as much as anybody else.
Yeah. But it's often harder.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it's the first easiest way to go about it, but it works a lot better than trying to change the other person, because that'll never work. This at least has a chance to work. So we can say with great confidence that whenever we're wondering, why does this always happen to me? It's not out there we need to look, it's in here. It's something about our way of being in the world. Because why we're upset is because what we expected isn't happening. So what were we expecting and why? And that's usually where we find the answer.
I guess that the easiest thing is not to having any expectations.
Well, that's true. But we do. We have lots of them. And we become aware of them when somebody doesn't meet them. And here's the kernel of truth in this whole thing. If we could really know any other person, there could only be love between us. Every person and animal and plant and, everything in the universe is an expression of the all-knowing, all, powerful mind and ideas. And therefore, somewhere within everybody, there is that power and magnificence. And when we are more and more aware of it in ourselves, it makes it easier to become more aware of it in other people and to appreciate it and enjoy it in our contacts in the universe. And this is the story I just told you about my mother, which really was a turning point in my life. So that is where I got to in preparing this class. Anybody want to share a situation where you see that a way that you may want to change your perception of something?
I have the feeling that this is a constant process to change one's own perception.
For me, it is, yeah.
Because we only see one part of something, and if we go, for example, into the shoes of the ones we are in conflict, this is what happens with me. It's changing the whole story in a way.
Right. Yes.
So sometimes the shoes are not so.
Sometimes
nice.
They don't fit so well, huh?
Sometimes they are a bit tight, but
yeah.
it's always worth it doing it. And it's something I'm constantly on my way, because this is the only possibility to really get changes.
Yes. And, you know, the correlate, that is something that we really often don't believe, is that life is supposed to be playful and wonderful and fun and happy, and, you know, how much of it is? How can we experience that more? There are many opportunities, but it's surprising how hard we are on ourselves and others, how disposed we are to think of what we need to do as work, as difficult, as, you know, something that's inherently hard, that life is supposed to be hard. It's not. I mean, I know my parents certainly taught me that, you know, if it wasn't hard, it wasn't worth anything. And that was totally false. But it's taken me many years to understand that.
Right. That was my mom's thing, was that life is pain, and if you're not in pain, you must be living.
Right.
And I was like, what? I totally didn't understand that point of view. I probably won't ever understand that point of view. We often had arguments that I told my children I loved them and that they were wonderful, and all, but completely too much, that would make them grow up to be disappointed when they found out they weren't that wonderful. None of them have found that out yet. So
good.
So we're okay so far.
Yeah,
but,
that's great.
But I mean, like, she would tell me this up until a year ago, 2 times a week, that I just told them they were too wonderful. It was like, you can't tell somebody they're too wonderful.
Yeah, right.
You can't.
Exactly. So, you know, I would say that your children are very fortunate that they got told they were wonderful, as opposed to all the things that was wrong with them.
Yeah, I got told a lot of that.
I got told a lot of that too.
Like, A is for all right, and B is for bad. And
Yep.
It's like, nobody thinks that except my parents.
Well, that was the standard in Western civilization.
Yeah.
At the time that our parents grew up.
These are the grades you get. And so if I'm not exemplary in everything, I'm pretty much worthless.
Right.
And there was a lot of things I could not be exemplary.
Yep.
But the things that I excelled in was having fun.
Good.
Which was good for me, but didn't satisfy anybody else's in the longevity of family.
Yes. So, you know, our life is full of relationships, and everybody is wonderful, and it's up to us to figure out how that works. That's our challenge. And I'm learning now what I didn't learn as a kid, that, wow, you can have fun doing anything. And that makes life wonderful. And if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, it's very joyful. And that how I perceive a situation is going to determine how it feels as I live it. That's a very interesting lesson. So think about, as you think about, for instance, what do you want to do now as a way to be in the flow of, how people live and how people get what they need. Because we all are programmed with a need to be needed, to be important to somebody for some reason. And that's where we find hope. So some of us are kind of in the first round of that search, and some of us are in the 6th or 7th round of that search. But it's always a question that we can find an answer to. And it's up to us to find it.
It is like a spiral, you start with the first round and then you go to the second floor and then the third floor. And sometimes we always feel that this is always the same, but it is not always the same because we always have a different perspective.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have a different perspective, then we probably feel pretty stuck.
Yeah, that's
Feeling stuck isn't fun. And we can always get unstuck.
change shoes.
Yeah, change shoes, right. Yep. Okay. Anybody have anything else they want to add to this conversation?
I have something very special.
Okay.
On Ascension Day, I suddenly had the idea that I could start a GoFundMe. You sent me
Yes.
You did send me the link
Right.
to this.
Right.
And we have started for the forest and water and all these things for Suleiman's project in Mali.
Uh-huh.
And right now we are below 1,000 Swiss francs. And all in all, we have calculated we need 21,000. And I'm so confident that we are going to get it and that soon we can start planting our forest. So keep the fingers crossed.
Yep.
Pray for our project. It's a wonderful project.
Yes, I'm sure it is. And along the same lines, we're trying our GoFundMe to be able to get tents to shelter Sayed's kids in his schools.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind too, that the connection and the flow, that all of these needs will participate fully. And I'm sure they will.
They have to.
Yeah, exactly. But the more people we have focusing on them, the more power there is in that vision. So thank you.
Yeah, we are already having 78 or how many moringa trees coming up.
Yeah.
So we are very close to have this forest.
Very good. Yeah, the more trees you plant, the more forest there will be eventually. So,
yeah, in addition, what Anne-Marie said, it is the case here in Mali with the children. A wonderful project that we have begin with it, and we are going on. Interesting for the children, interesting for the nature, and to peacekeeping also. And right now in Mali, where we live, this project is like a light for the other people, because we bring peace and enjoy for the children.
Mhm.
and really interesting for all. Really,
It
So-
will be a peace forest.
really
Wonderful.
it is a peace forest.
Yes.
And we have already begun with the moringa. We have more than 77 moringa is are happening, and in this week we are going with another plant that will be really interesting for us, and we are keeping their vision and hope that we are going to get this peace forest. Really.
Awesome. And so it is.
And so it is, exactly. Thanks a lot, Rosemary.
Okie doke. So thank you all for being here, being
Thank
part of
you.
this.
Thank you so
And
much.
look forward to seeing you next week.